Alright, so in this video what you're going to be seeing today is how you convert between degree and radian angle measures. So many of you don't know what a radian angle measure is, so we'll start out with kind of describing what that is and then how you switch between the two. We'll go from degrees to radians and then radians to degrees. So first off, what we'll start with here is just looking at a circle here. What I've drawn is just two lines intersecting with a circle around it. Now let's just say the circle has a radius of 1 unit. So the 1 unit is the radius, and if these two lines are perpendicular, what we have is 90 degrees here. That means to go from here to here, what we actually have again is 90 degrees. Now if we go, just a little farther, we talk about the angle measure from here all the way around halfway around the circle is 180 degrees. If we go a little further and go all the way around here, what you realize is that's 270 degrees. Now if we go just a little farther, from where we start all the way back around, many of you know that is 360 degrees. So we've accomplished so far, talking about, angle measures, and that should be nothing new. Now if we talk about a circle that has a radius of 1 unit, we can talk about the distance around the circle. So if you recall from your previous classes, the circumference of a circle you can find by doing diameter times pi, or circumference can be 2 times pi times the radius. Now if you recall, the diameter is all the way across the circle. So not just 1 unit here, but in this case it'll be 2 units. So excuse me, the distance around the whole circle, so circumference would be 2 times pi. So what we have then is that we know the distance all the way around, starting from here, going all the way around this circle, will be 2 pi. Now you could have done that using this second equation as well. It'd be 2 times pi times a radius of 1. So kind of equating what's going on here. So what you can kind of see if you talk about a circle with a 1 unit radius, what you might notice here is that, well, if you have 180 degrees, that's equal to halfway around the circle. If it's 2 pi all the way around, halfway around is just going to be pi. Or likewise, 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi. So you see those two things. And we're going to use those facts in a moment. So this is kind of just a background of where this radian measure comes from. It's talking about angle measures compared with the distance around a circle with a 1 unit radius. So on the next page, which is where you're going to want to start to take some notes. So here we go. To convert between radians and degrees, we're going to use two main facts we just talked about. 180 degrees is the same as a pi distance around a 1 unit circle, and then 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi. So with that in mind, what we can realize here is if we want to convert between the two, what we're going to use is just a ratio and some cross multiplying. So the ratio of pi over 180 degrees is equal to, well, whatever the radian measure will be compared to the degree measure. So it's just kind of a ratio. If we increase the radians, we can increase degrees. Or we could use the second fact that 2 pi over 360 is going to equal the radian over degrees. Now, what you want to write down in your notes that I'm asking you to do, have these things written down that I've starred next to. These are the main concepts that you want to use. Excuse me. So we have those things in our back pocket and kind of out there to use. Now we're going to go on and convert. So we're going to start with, in our first one, we're going to convert degrees to radians. All right. So we're going to start with degrees here. First one we're going to start with is just 60 degrees. Now I do want you to write down these examples, so you will write these down. And if you have questions, you can rewind it or ask on the next day. So to start with, we want to change 60 degrees into radians. So you start with the idea, remember that pi over 180 degrees is going to be equal to the radian measure over degrees. That's from the last page. So what we have here is pi over 180 is the same as radians. Well, we don't know that. That's what we're converting to over the degrees, which is 60. So then, if we just use that information here, I'm going to slide over to the side, and now just simply cross multiply. So if we do that, multiplying, we get 180x equals 60 pi. Now remember, we're trying to solve for x. That's the radian measure. That's one we don't know. So if we divide by 180, what you end up with, x equals, well, 60 pi over 180. And simply reduce that. 60 over 180 reduces to 1/3, right? So we have x equals 1/3, 1 times pi over 3, which is same as pi over 3. So now we've converted, if we talk about an angle in radians, that's pi over 3. That is the same as 60 degrees. So we've converted that way. So here's another one we're going to do. Second one, we are now going to convert an angle. We can go negative degrees, so maybe in the opposite direction. Let's say we have negative 135 degrees. And we want to convert that. So we start again. Pi over 180. Now you could use 2 pi over 360. It's just going to make your numbers bigger. Is we want to change this to radians, so that's x over degrees, negative 135. Cross multiply again. All right, so if you have 180, x equals negative 135 pi. Divide by 180 again, and you have x equals, now you have negative 135 pi over 180. And then you would simply look at that and try and reduce it, or use your calculator. And you just take negative 135 over 180, hit enter, and then use the calculator, the math function, if you want, and change it back to a fraction, and you realize that this is going to be the same as negative 3/4. So it's negative 3 pi over 4. So now we're going to go in the other direction here. We're going to switch between radians and degrees. So we're going to switch radians to degrees now. So we're going to convert a radian measure to degrees. So when you do that, it's the same concept as before. We know that pi over 180 is equal to our radians over degrees. So the same thing, if let's say we want to change, let's go 5 pi over 4. And so that is what we're going to convert now. So our problem here, number 3, we want to convert 5 pi over 4 to degrees. So now we just do the same things we've done before. I'm going to extend the page a little here. Well, that's not working as well as it should here. So if we can't extend the page, that's a pain. But we'll just do the same things here. We're going to do pi over 180 equals, now in this case we have 5 pi over 4 over the degrees, that's the x. Now I'm just going to move on over here and cross multiply again. So we take 5 pi over 4 and multiply that out. So in your calculator, take 5/4 pi, or 5/4 times 180. So it's 5 over 4 times 180, and you end up with 225. So that is equal to 225 pi. Multiplying the other way, we have in our degrees here, we have pi x. So what we're actually solving for now, remember, is the x. So we're going to divide both sides by pi, and you end up with 225 equals x. So what is the degrees? Well, that's what we just solved for, 225 degrees. So that's pretty much the extent of what we're doing right now as far as how you would convert between the two. And from there, you can convert any of the numbers you want. So we got pause there. So what we're going to do is then, you can convert between any of them. So you should have these 3 examples down. And then to start tomorrow, what I'd like you to do is to try this one. So what I would like you to actually to try for the next day is to take and do exchange or convert to degrees a total of what would be 105, or excuse me, convert to radians. Excuse me, just like we were just doing a moment ago, convert to radians and 2 degrees. So we're going to do 2 problems here, actually, excuse me. So convert to radians, this first one. I'm going to give you a degree of 105 degrees. And then secondly, convert to degrees this problem, where we have a radian measure of 7 pi over 12. So use the 2 ideas we've just talked about and complete those 2 things.